Ready for adventure?
Whip it on me!
Welcome.
Hello, friend, and welcome to the internet. We know you've journeyed far, but hopefully you are ready for the wonderful and pleasurable experience that the World Wide Web has to offer. With the advanced technology of your 56K modem, you're ready to join a fantastic new realm of possibilities. Just make sure no one else is using that phone line, or else they'll be bombarded with noise so horrifying they'll welcome the upcoming Y2K apocalypse. Yes, that's a real thing. That's going to happen and reduce the whole planet into the Stone Age.
Windows. I know Windows.
Hey. Oh, wow. I told you people to stay away from the brown floppies.
First, boot up your copy of Windows 95 and behold its magnificent glory. See before you its vast and erotic features, such as Microsoft Paint, a digital art studio so advanced that it literally resurrected Da Vinci's corpse and is forcing him to live with the existential crisis that mortality can be ephemeral.
This is the original icon for mail. It's a rudimentary phallus.
Quite to the point.
Yes, indeed.
Or Minesweeper, a video game that will actually make you feel like a refugee fleeing from the harsh realities of the post-imperialistic leftover bombs in your home country. Or MS-DOS, an archaic back-end operating system that powers the entire thing and for some reason will be necessary to run this advanced software for decades.
The internet. It's a scary place. There's dancing babies, an endless supply of memes, and even a dim tool.
I'm definitely not a socialist. Absolutely not.
But even before the internet forums were breeding grounds for alternative ways of thinking, the problem of how to police speech online was a concern. The first forums were digital bulletin boards, which, while technically existing since the 1970s, weren't used publicly until about 1994. The early arbiters of language were human, believe it or not, and moderators were responsible for moderating the first digital town halls. There wasn't a lot of controversy. After all, the internet and the entire planet becoming interconnected seemed like a Star Trek erotic fan fiction.
Is there anyone on this ship who even remotely looks like Satan?
I am not aware of anyone who fits that.
So people policing people was the early days of the Wild Wild Web, and there wasn't much controversy outside of how fast you could down a single JPEG before your mother caught you.
Ugh, this high-speed modem is intolerably slow. Hey, what the... the Internet King. I wonder if he can provide faster nudity.
We don't have time to dive into the entire history of the internet. That would distract us from our main focus. Like everything else, it evolved through multiple iterations. Once people started plugging in, they were hooked. They hung out in the first forums, then in rudimentary chat sites, then eventually on chat protocols like ICQ and MSN Messenger. If you were craving a 24/7 experience, you could create a free GeoCities website and load it with as much horrifying neon signs and GIFs that your processor could handle, and then bask in the all-consuming experience of having absolutely no one ever see it.
So where else can we go? Want to write a letter to President Clinton? Would he answer us? I bet he would.
Let's tell him how much we love the internet and that he should try to get more computers for our schools.
But how do we even look up the White House?
You type www.whitehouse.gov.
While exploring the endless world of possibilities and draining every one of your precious bodily fluids, you may be inspired to make your own website. That is no easy task, and you'll have to learn a brand new language called HTML. Or use GeoCities like everyone else, and basically make an ugly poster board for Comic Sans fonts and dancing babies.
It's very good only when it's together, because moo, not good, and shoe, that doesn't taste good at all, but mushu together, that's an afternoon delight. A top-notch food experience.
You okay there, Mushu?
Do you like space? How about having your own space? Well, MySpace could provide that need. Acting as one of the largest first iterations of social media, it became a nightmarish poster board for advertising your life to the world. Sure, you might know MySpace as seriously, what the hell is it doing online?
Kind of makes you wonder who's on MySpace.
But nothing could prepare the world for what one little Harvard grad would do next.
Do you think I deserve your full attention?
I had to swear an oath before we began this deposition, and I don't want to perjure myself, so I have a legal obligation to say no.
Okay, no. You don't think I deserve your attention?
I think if your clients want to sit on my shoulders and call themselves tall, they have a right to give it a try, but there's no requirement that I enjoy sitting here listening to people lie. You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount. The rest of my attention is back at the offices of Facebook.
Yes, Facebook. You may have heard of it. Like YouTube, it occupies nearly 1/7 of the world's population at some point during the day. And when it's not being used to mine personal information to be sold to the highest bidder, or mine personal information to sell to political think tanks, or mine personal information to... The fuck does Facebook do again? Not for college days alone, Facebook grew from an exclusive Harvard experience to eventually being the dominant form of social media that your parents still use today. Policing all that speech is difficult, however. As the platform grew, so did its human police squad, which to this day stands at hundreds of thousands of individuals, many of whom are located in the Philippines. They scroll through thousands of posts every day looking for flagged messages and deleting those deemed unfit for human consumption. Facebook may still be the most frequent form of social media, but when it comes to free speech, nothing quite compares to the power of the fluttering bird.
I only sleep every 3 weeks when the moon reaches a certain type of crescent window. I only also sleep in the freshest whales. It's so ridiculous.
Originally proposed by co-founder Jack Dorsey as a way to share MMS messages within a podcast company, Twitter has blossomed into the medium in which any human being can text the entire world.
The sense of gratitude, like it's just so powerful. And so powerful to express it to oneself. I mean, I have a similar practice where every night I'm just writing down what I'm grateful for. And it really puts things in perspective.
And naturally, the world has used it for the most humble of purposes. Yes, Twitter, once the bastion of comedians talking about their breakfast, is now one of the most volatile platforms on the light web. From its very inception, Twitter was exalted as a bastion of free speech, stating numerous times they would not silence their users' content, just in a more bizarre tech bro kind of way. Basically, imagine if Keanu Reeves from Johnny Mnemonic was giving a TED Talk.
I'm a dead man if I don't get this out of my head.
If I can get it out.
How?
A cranial drill and a pair of forceps.
That all changed when doxing, harassment, and hatred started occurring to celebrities. It sent shockwaves through the dark web when Milo Hippopotamus was banned from the platform for simply exercising his free speech. That and being racist as fuck.
Jones detailed the abusive words and images she was receiving and the racist and misogynistic slurs against her that even compared her to an ape.
Milo's harassment campaign was against Ghostbusters actor Leslie Jones. At the time, his army of over 300,000, totally having a normal one, fans attacked her en masse, causing her to leave the platform. It subsequently became one of the last platforms to eject the gay frog cannibal from its mist, after YouTube, Facebook, Apple, and Angry Birds all gave him the hee-ho. Suddenly, a darker picture was starting to form, one that illustrated a clear and dangerous pattern, that right-wing people were being exclusively singled out, and it didn't stop there. Soon they were going after titans of industry, deep sec operative and confirmed more brilliant than Mozart prodigy Jacob Wohl.
What is your background as a professional investigator?
Like I said, I've done a handful of matters.
As part of an inherent bias in the tech industry, Jacob was yeeted from the platform due to his brilliance, and it wasn't long before his consensual lifemate Laura Loomer fell under the guillotine of the Social Justice Brigade. Yes, Twitter was purging all right-wing visionaries from its platform, and there was nothing anyone could do about it.
Get that guy out of here. He's crazy. What?
But then again, Tim Pool isn't anyone.
And I say with caveats on all of these things because it's really easy to just say I'm for this and then not explain it. And conservatives think all of a sudden I'm a socialist who wants to live babies or whatever.
Right. Now, before we soil our beanies, let's establish that Tim Pool is just one discontinued action figure from the intellectual dark canon. Joe Rogan speaks frequently about the unadulterated free speech. Jordan Peterson actually puts his lobsters where his mouth is and funded the creation of his own social media platform to truly push for a completely open town hall that you have to pay to attend. Dave Rubin frequently talks about whatever Dennis Prager pays him to say. But in Tim's case, it's the centerpiece of his brand. He's an avowed liberal who's a centrist, who's a parrot for the alt-right, who produces an overwhelming majority of right-wing talking points, who's actually a journalist?
There's no photo of me in any press anywhere without the hat on. And at any moment, I could take my hat off and be a different person. And that also means that people right now saying take the beanie off, they're saying pay him to take the beanie off.
Tim makes important videos ranging from why the regressive left doesn't like being called NPCs and how the Amazon rainforest fires aren't actually that bad.
I will say this, I am never someone who will have any kind of derangement syndrome. I'm not going to get into the whole Brazil-Bolsonaro thing because I think it might be too esoteric for a lot of people. You got to know a lot about Brazil. Brazil's got political correctness problems to an insane degree. I know comedians who are facing jail time for jokes, much like Dankula, and these are famous people. So yeah, people were craving a strong man when people were getting shut down for telling silly jokes. So I get it.
You know, journalism. But there's one thing above all others that truly reviles him, and that's anyone infringing on his free speech.
So this is a really funny anecdote. I was covering a story in Berkeley, and someone said, if you see him, attack him. It was. I'm paraphrasing. They said basically to swing at me, take my stuff, steal from me. And Twitter told me after review it was not a violation of their policy. Somebody made an allusion to me being a homosexual, and I reported that, instantly gone. So when I so for me, I'm like, well, of course Twitter is going to enforce the social justice aspect of their policy immediately.
You see, free speech is the fundamental pillar of society. It's the supreme taco gordita loco smothered in God's own personal cheese. And it's certainly not something Tim Pool or Jordan Peterson or Dave Rubin, three of the least hypocritical human beings to ever walk the face of the earth, could ever sacrifice for anything.
I'm hoping that the combination of the two lawsuits will be enough to convince careless university professors and administrators blinded by their own ideology to be much more circumspect in their actions and their words.
And whether he's saying it on the Joe Rogan podcast or his podcast with Joe Rogan or coming on the Joe Rogan Experience to discuss it with Jack Dorsey and Joe Rogan, he's very consistent with this messaging. There's an inherent bias within the tech industry towards leftism. In fact, not just the tech industry, but all of Silicon Valley has an inherent bias against the right opinions they consider to be dissenting. To prove this, he often references comprehensive statistical analyses and pertinent case studies that directly demonstrate his thesis. And by case studies, I mean whatever bizarre anecdotal cross he decides to bear that particular day, whether it's the plight of Alex Jones, or the plight of Milo, or the plight of Hitler.
I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I don't think Trump is literally the reincarnation of a certain World War II era hero. I can't say his name because this is YouTube.
Tim isn't shy about the persecution of right-wing voices on the platform, and the most interesting thing about these claims is that they're turning right-wingers into goddamn commies.
Hail Putin! Hail Russia! You will never surrender!
Здравствует Россия и Америка!
Yes!
За дружбу народов!
Yes, that is the KGB plan! Ha ha ha! Well done, comrades! It's so American!
Suddenly the likes of Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and even Ruby the Human Shill started demanding that social media sites become a public utility.
The Triforce of Twitter needs to be fractured and sent out in different directions. That's what the power needs to be distributed. It's too much for one person.
I'm a socialist who wants to abort live babies.
And simultaneously lefties, rather than celebrate, reveled in the opportunity to exclaim, "Natural capitalism works."
Once you've stopped reveling in technology that would make Star Trek feel like Star Wars, you're ready to connect to the worldwide spiderweb. Just beware, gentle users. The internet is a frightening place where all things are possible. The most outrageous of sexual inclinations and the most mundane of blogs will be within your reach of your fingertips. And once you put yourself out there, you're bound to get a reaction. And if it's the wrong thing, censorship.
Once the reset died down and the smoke had settled, or started, everyone was left to wonder where the truth lied. After all, Richard Spencer still has a YouTube channel, and a Twitter account, and most other social media. In fact, he was making thousands from Super Chat at one point before the latest adpocalypse. Oh yeah, the whole Carlos Maza being a sensitive snowflake to a few tawdry callouts.
Video with our favorite lispy sprite from Vox. It's ridiculous. It's bonkers. You're being given a free pass as a crappy writer because you're gay.
That center line on his little queer graph there. What is
well,
that
now
line?
the graph is queer?
Violence, filth.
Okay, so the little queer can eat his chips all nonchalant.
Rather than follow their own terms of service or, be decent human beings, YouTube decided that it was in their best interest to preserve Steven Crowder's mug empire of bigotry and instead finally carpet-bombed the overwhelming amount of white nationalist accounts on the platform. Oh, and Kevin Logan for some reason? But hey, any drone strike is bound to have a few casualties, right, Mr. President?
I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt. Now.
But after the fodder has come from the cannon, all that's left is the simple fact that there isn't any inherent bias towards the right or the left, only towards money. For YouTube gets off on content that generates watch time minutes, that's advertiser friendly, and more favors corporate TV shows that already have passed through FCC standards, so they don't have to worry. That's the bias. It's money.
Had to work more than one job to have a roof over your head or food on the table, you probably shouldn't have taken the job that's not paying you enough. That'd be a you problem.
It's always been money, and under capitalism will always be money. The argument could be made that right-wing ghouls are usually so far outside the Overton window that they're busy burning crosses while the most spectacular gay orgy is going on the inside. But that's it. That's all there is to it, Tim. Tim, the most centered journalist ever to report on the issue. I mean, after all, it's not like he's been quoted as saying verbatim that if you believe in white privilege, you are by definition a racist. It's not like he tried to defend Brittany Pettibone, a co-host of Virtue of the West podcast, which promoted white genocide conspiracy theories, with co-host and avowed white nationalist Tara McCarthy.
Pew Research Group did a study. They found that I believe around 60% of Muslims, these are considered moderate, would support Sharia law. And so I understand that concern. Yeah. But I actually think there have been a lot of problems in Dearborn. We've heard a lot of news. It's compared to some of the places in Europe. Dearborn hasn't had a string of crazy terror attacks or anything like that. So I guess I'm wondering, I'm wondering if it's not necessarily the culture, but the religion, right? Yeah,
but the religion informs their culture. I mean, like everything.
It
goes
hand in hand. It's not like Tim stated emphatically that there was a conspiracy theory surrounding people altering their Wikipedia page to try and slander her.
Are you racist?
It's not like he appears in a photo with her and Big Talaska and a group of people doing the OK symbol. For the lulz, am I right, boys? It's not like he's good enough friends with Faith Goldie to send her private messages. The same Faith Goldie who said the 14 words on the podcast.
Of our people and a future for white children. Yeah.
And was prohibited debating in the Toronto mayoral election as a result. It's not like he sent her a direct message claiming that Facebook was targeting people like them and that they should do anything about it. It's not like he once claimed Hitler was actually a hero in World War II.
The incarnation of a certain World War II era hero.
These are just circumstantial, completely unrelated instances that occur in the line of being a thorough and Pulitzer-less award-winning journalist. After all, he's mixed race himself, which by definition makes you a racist even for watching this video. And that's the internet.
By now, you should be swimming in a stew of your own juices. Always remember, gentle warrior, that the internet, like a sword, can be a double-edged sword. Be safe, be merry, and above all else, wear a condom.
Serfs, what up? Oligarch dollars, Napoleano. Yo, look at these dudes changing their views to get views on YouTube, but think tanks paying them dues. David, you a grifter, right? David Ike, shapeshifter. From young Turks to the Blaze, grade A flipper. Guess you got emancipated, no Abe Lincoln. Race baiting, reactionary, stay clicking. You ain't the only one the coke bros incubating. Mercers and Murdochs, whoever else throwing cake in. Michael and Sam there, but you scared to debate them. Cold feet, peace Crowder, we still waiting. How it feel being a hack in a shill? How much it cost? 50, 100,000, half of a mil? It's a crime being alive, black, gay, or trans, or immigrant or Porsche, free market, hands off, or laissez-faire, unless they don't agree with you. Laws of power, coward, don't bite the hand feeding you. Millionaire whisperers.
Tim, this is the internet. If you even engage in a remotely decent conversation with someone gets destroyed. that is
Dave Rubin just destroyed Tim Pool.
There will be several destructions here.
You enjoy what you just watched and now crave more nectar of the damned? Did you know that if you're watching on YouTube, you're only getting half the surfy experience? We upload all of our content commercial and censorship free to our Patreon. Due to the general demonetization of our videos, we now upload half of our original content directly to those who can help us produce this show. Want even more nectar than that? Well, come join us at twitch.tv/TheSerfsTV, where we do weekly live streams, debates, interviews, AMAs, and more. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can help support our show 100% free by subscribing to our Twitch channel. So come join us, be merry, and know that your support is helping us do great things.